Um, Good morning, students. I'd like to do for you guys today the IDs. We have 23 of these listed. I have them in here in front of me, and 10 will be on the final. Final is coming up on Monday. So, for as a preparation for the final, I'll just go over the IDs to refresh your memory. All right. Number one, Gabriel's slave rebellion. That rebellion happened while James Monroe, number 5, here was governor of Virginia. And he crushed that rebellion. The rebellion came as a consequence of the Haiti slave rebellion, the first successful slave rebellion in history that liberated the country of Saint Dominique, French colony, and made it into Haiti. So, slaves in Virginia wanted to imitate this rebellion, and they were crushed by then governor of Virginia, James Monroe. Related to this is number 3, Toussaint Louverture, who was a former slave, but the leader of the slave rebellion in Haiti, who successfully fought the French and won the independence of Haiti. So that's 1 and 3, right? Number 2 is Tecumseh, Indian chief Tecumseh. He was an Indian chief who came to Providence before and during the War of 1812, the war between the United States and Great Britain, which the United States provoked, hoping to conquer Canada, and Tecumseh actually, working with the British, captured the fort of Detroit, Fort Wayne in Detroit, and Detroit is actually in Wayne County, so that's why it's called Fort Wayne. And although at this point it's called Fort Detroit, but that be that as it may. Let's let that get complicated. Anyways, by doing this, he sort of deprived the United States one of the great aims that it had in this war of 1812 to capture Canada, and that failed, not in a small extent due to Tecumseh, the Shawnee, chief of the Shawnee tribe. Enough? Yeah, that's about it. So Toussaint Louverture, we had him before, the leader of the Haiti slave rebellion. Number 4, we have Clinton DeWitt, the governor of New York, a famous Whig who advocated the building and then did a lot to build Erie Canal. Erie Canal is the canal that connects the Hudson River through the Mohawk River that goes flows east-west, from west to east into the Hudson, through the area of Upper New York State, and then connects that river to Lake Ontario and Lake Erie near Buffalo. That canal actually connected the Great Lakes area to New York Harbor through Hudson River, and was the backbone of the northern economy that eventually proved to be much more successful financially and militarily in the Civil War. Anyways, that's Clinton DeWitt. Number 5, we have an example of a different political party, a Democrat, James Monroe. Example of the president of the Virginia dynasty, together with Jefferson and Madison. He was the president who signed on to the Missouri Compromise, which divided the country between the slave states and the free states, and so that the southern border of Missouri was the border of the slave states, and that there were no slave states to the north of that line. I think it's 36.5 parallel. That famous for his Monroe Doctrine, that European powers should not interfere with affairs of America. And one of the great motives from this doctrine was actually the issue of slavery, because at this point Great Britain has banned slavery and was actively pursuing and trying to clamp down on slave trade across the Atlantic that was crossing over, especially into Brazil, and then from Brazil the slaves would be coming into southern United States. And Britain was trying to stop that, and actually Monroe didn't want that to happen. Anyways, number 6, we have Trail of Tears, associated with Andrew Jackson, who famously fought for a little man, a founder of Jacksonian democracy, but that definition of little man didn't include Native Americans, the so-called 5 civilized tribes, the Cherokee, the Seminole, and a couple of others, who were taken from that area of Georgia, Louisiana, Alabama border, and just moved into the Indian Territory that is today Oklahoma. They had to leave everything of their possessions. They were well settled. They had houses. That they were not nomads, and their possessions were taken away, and they were just sent on this trail of tears, where many died on the way to Oklahoma. Anyways, Peggy Eaton, another character associated with Andrew Jackson and Jacksonian democracy. Peggy Eaton became a wife of a senator from Tennessee and Secretary of War in the cabinet of Andrew Jackson. She had a suspicious past, at least, that's what people at the time thought. And she was not considered to be a respectable lady. And the cabinet members avoided her, and she was shunned in the social circles in Washington. This was to the great disappointment of President Andrew Jackson, who had a similar experience in his life. His marriage to Rachel Jackson, who was previously married, and the two of them ran away together and eloped, and that was a big scandal at the time, which, when this happened to Peggy Eaton, he was reminded of what happened to him and Rachel, and he kind of was the only one who stood on their side. Anyways, John Calhoun was a vice president under Andrew Jackson, and he had a distinguished career. But here among our IDs is for one particular reason, as the ideologue of slavery. He was probably the most eloquent defender of slavery at that time. Number 9, we have Daniel Webster, one of the founders of the Whig Party, and a party that was opposed to Jacksonian Democrats, that actually came into existence when Andrew Jackson came to power. And that's why sort of the name Whig was given to the Whig Party, because Whigs in England were traditionally the party that opposed the king, and they were joking that we have King Andrew now, King Andrew Jackson, President Andrew Jackson. Anyway, so these are the Whigs, and number 10 we have Davy Crockett as an example of the policy of Jacksonian Democrats, the policy of expansion of America from sea to shining sea. But first start with Texas, another slave state, to join the Union. And David Crockett, together with many people from Tennessee, like Sam Houston, went to Texas to fight against Mexico. Their main issue was that Mexico didn't allow slavery. So they fought for first independent Texas, and then eventually Texas joined the United States, or as they say in Texas, and then the United States joined Texas. Anyways, number 11, we have Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, who was president of Mexico for a long period and had various positions in Mexico of great influence. He was a conservative politician. He fought against Texas independence and eventually lost, even though he had a sweet victory at Alamo, where David Crockett died. And he also fought against the United States in the US-Mexican War, which was organized by President James K. Polk. Number 14, another example of these Jacksonian Democrats who had a very expansionist foreign policy, especially in the South, especially at the expense of Mexico. Therefore, I thought, should include Lopez de Santa Anna in these IDs. Number 12, we have William Henry Harrison, the first Whig president, who was president for only about 30 days, who, according to the legend, killed Tecumseh, the Indian chief, who was number 2, right? Remember him in the War of 1812, the guy who captured Detroit for the British and stopped the invasion of Canada. William Henry Harrison allegedly killed Tecumseh, and Tecumseh then cursed him, and that's why he died in office. Well, I guess he died because of a disease, but he died nonetheless. So anyways, William Henry Harrison, for us, important as the first Whig president. Then we have number 13, Zachary Taylor, another Whig president. And then, you can add a couple of things about the Whigs, what the Whigs stand for in contrast to Jacksonian Democrats. Whigs, the Jacksonian Democrats. So Zachary Taylor was a Whig. He was a general in the US-Mexican War. The Whigs in general opposed this war, and Zachary Taylor didn't like it, but he participated in it nonetheless, and successfully. So anyways, we have, who is next here? James K. Polk, right? Number 14, James K. Polk, another Tennessean, another president from Tennessee. Sort of, we have series of Jacksonian presidents, so to speak, Jacksonian era of Jacksonian democracy that includes Andrew Jackson, Martin Van Buren, and James K. Polk. He continued the policies of Andrew Jackson, which included the expansion of slavery into southern territories, inclusion of Florida and Texas as slave-owning state into the Union. And that became later a cause for great controversy, including eventually the Civil War. Anyways, we have number 15 here, Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman was a former slave who managed to get out through the underground railroad. But maybe network is a better example because there was no really rail involved with the whole thing. So she is really a symbol of the underground network, underground railroad, that especially became prominent after the Compromise of 1850, when northern states were forced to return all the slaves, all the runaway slaves to their owners in the South. And Harriet Tubman fought against that, and that's why she ended up here and in many other famous places. Number 16, we have Frederick Douglass, another black person, probably the most famous black man of the 19th century. He wrote books about his journey from slavery to freedom, and those books became extremely popular, and he became one of the most eloquent advocates of the abolitionist cause in the 19th century. Number 17, we have Charles Sumner, a senator, anti-slavery abolitionist senator from Massachusetts, who was beaten in the U.S. Senate by the Southern opposition to slavery. So that's enough about Charles Sumner. That's why he is here. I just wanted to make you aware of this incident that there was a bit of fighting, serious fighting with clubs going on in the U.S. Senate over the issue of slavery. Number 18 is the famous Dred Scott, the case that went all the way to Supreme Court. A former a slave who was taken from slave states into the north, into the free states, and then returned back to Missouri, which was a slave state, and there he questioned whether or not, once that he moved to the to the territory of free states, does that make him a free man? Or should he actually be returned back into slavery after living as a free person in the North? And the Supreme Court made a decision that constitutional rights were not given to the black people, and therefore Dred Scott must became a slave again. He was a very famous case for the abolitionists who supported him all the way, and it was an outrageous case that kind of brought focus to the issue of slavery. Number 19, we go to the Civil War. William Tecumseh Sherman, a general from Ohio, who burned Atlanta and marched to the sea, cut through the Confederacy in half, and made possible the Union victory after a long 3 years of protracted fighting in the east between Washington, D.C. and the Confederate capital, Richmond, Virginia. Tecumseh Sherman, he was an associate, a subordinate of the commanding general in the West, Ulysses S. Grant. Anyways, that's enough about Tecumseh Sherman. We have Samuel Mudd, one of the people executed for the murder of Abraham Lincoln, for the assassination of Abraham Lincoln in 1865, after he was elected and took office, and after the end of the Civil War. Samuel Mudd was a doctor, physician, and he was a plantation owner in Maryland. He was severely hit by the policies of Abraham Lincoln, things like Emancipation Proclamation. Maryland was under direct federal control, and thus the slave owners had no say in what was going on there, and the slaves were freed. And he was outrage and participated in the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Likewise, number 21, Mary Surratt, was part of the conspiracy. She was the hotel owner that who hosted a lot of these conspirators who were coming together and plotting to kill Lincoln. And then when they were captured, Mary Surratt was the first woman executed for the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. Number 22, we have Elizabeth Cady Stanton, what was called the suffragette, leader of the movement of women. She was from New York State, and she fought for the rights of women to vote, and then came into conflict with the abolitionists when with the 13, 14, and 15 amendments, the black people were given the right to vote before white women. So that's, in short, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. And finally, we have Walt Whitman, the great poet of New York, a bohemian, an eccentric, a person with a long beard, like the, what do you call it today, hipsters of today. They imitate these beards of 19th century bohemians. And after the assassination of Lincoln, he wrote this famous poem, "O Captain, My Captain," and I just wanted you to know that. So that's about it. What we have, 23 IDs for the final, and I will pick 10. All right. Bye.